Hey there! So today we have another update. It's been a while since I've done one, so we're going to be talking about a little bit about the, my most recent current situation, and then I guess a question that comes up a lot is what does the future look like for you, Darwin? And I'm not quite sure myself, so let's tackle a couple things. I'm going to start off with the present. So if you guys don't already know, when I moved down here, one of my first jobs was working at Ellipsis, it's right by the Orlando airport. And I've had that job all the way until probably last fall. So somewhere around last winter of 2021. It just, it was nothing personal. It was just, it was literally I had bills to pay, and it wasn't busy enough for me. And thankfully, my second job, actually, soon after moving down here, about 6 months in after moving down here, I was able to get a job at Sanford Brewing. And Sanford Brewing is, I guess, a town north of Orlando, and it's one of the busier breweries in Sanford. And they opened a second location. I was able to get hired, first thing, part of the first staff. And so more and more shifts kept opening up. For a while, obviously, I had 2 jobs. That's what a lot of people do in the industry. You get 2-3 shifts for each job, and then you just make it work. You're a full-time worker. Well, more and more shifts kept opening up. So eventually moved on full-time at Sanford Brewing in Maitland, which is another suburb, about 10-15 minutes north of actual Orlando. And I've been there since day one, so it's been 2.5 years. So it's been pretty great. Great company to work for, great management, great friendly staff. Gonna have great guests too. And I work here full time now. And pretty much I'm a server, which is, that's what I do. So, and the fun thing is I've been in this industry for I want to say 7 years now. So 7 years, I think 6 or 7 years. And I guess I just never knew. I mean, it kept leading up to the fact that I enjoy being a server, but there's always hints. As a kid, my mom never cooked. My grandma cooked, so we ate out a lot. So was very familiar with just going out to restaurants a lot. So I saw all that. And then one of my first jobs was I think my first actual job where I actually got a paycheck was Dunkin' Donuts when I was 16 or 17 in high school. Yeah, and that was fun. I really enjoyed that gig. It was high volume. I was literally a kid, but I felt the other staff and the adults, literally because I was a kid, the adults I wasn't given the term manager, but I felt I was a lead of the crew or something like that. It was weird. It's a weird feeling, but it was just I just remember rolling in. I'd come into work at I had multiple shifts, but I remember coming to work at 4 or 5 o'clock, and then we'd have a huge rush of people after work. I guess they want coffee or something, and it was me and another guy, and we'd get destroyed. And now that I work in the restaurant and bar industry, it's a similar feeling. But I was doing it at 16, 17, and I loved it, and I was oh yeah, this is cool. And then I just obviously went to law school. Was thankful enough that I was supported through that and didn't have to get another job, so never worked in the service industry. But I really liked that gig. It was only for a summer, and then even through my adulthood, I was always the guy that I just had nothing to do, and I'd be out with my friends, and I'd just help bust glasses for a bartender, and they're what are you doing? You work here? Oh, thank. But obviously a lot of times thank you so much. You don't have to do that. But it's what are you doing? Am I just bussing tables? And I was I don't know. It just feels right. I'm at a bar. I feel bad for the bartender who has to stand there. Obviously, we're gonna sit at this table. I want it bussed, so we're gonna bust it for them, right? Stuff like that, and literally stuff stacking plates at a restaurant, and a waitress going yeah, you work in the industry. I'm oh, actually, no, but so just stuff like that. And then eventually now I'm what, 10 years later, I'm oh shoot, I guess I really enjoyed it, or yeah, I sort of like it. So pretty much a server. Enjoy the high volume, enjoy the multitasking. It's a very type A oriented kind of job, which I have a lot of. All the multitasking, all the balancing, multiple tasks. It also fits my I don't know. You guys tell me in the science if this is correct, but I feel people have different circadian rhythms. Some people love waking up at 5 a.m. and I'm I have no clue what you're talking about. I don't even like waking up at 8 a.m. I just like the feeling of working in the afternoon, working through the night, And like, I mean, thankfully this is not one of those, I mean, geez, the rough one was like in New York where like, it's not cool to get out of your job at like 3, 4, 5, 6 a.m., you know, because bars close at 4 a.m. in New York City. But thankfully I worked at places that like close at midnight or 2, and like here we close at like 10. So like, you know, I'm working into the night, but like not into the morning. So like, right. But it just works. Like I sort of like that schedule. So that's sort of what I do now. So people ask, what's the future? Like, you know, obviously I'm hopefully becoming an advanced cicerone soon, taking that test in the end of September. What is it like? What's your goal? Well, my immediate answer is like, hey, I don't have like an immediate goal, right? Hey, the number one answer is like, hey, we'd like to eventually move out of Florida, and ideally having like a 6 certification like that, where you're like one of 160 in the world, like helps me find a job in the next city or whatever place we move to. Certainly getting certified cicerone level 2 got me like almost all my jobs in the industry. I honestly, I wouldn't have kept failing and kept doing the same thing and not getting gigs and not getting rejected at interviews if it weren't for a certified cicerone. Like, right, like I finally got that and like doors opened up. I would eventually had to have quit and like, all right, Darwin, you have to be a lawyer now. You can't work in this dream industry that you want to work in, right? So that's the number one goal. Like, hopefully advanced cicerone means that I can do something else, or do something where I can be like hireable in the ideally crappier industry. But then like, what are the other goals? I don't know, like it's open. Then this also opens up a conversation that like people don't understand, or I think some people don't understand about like what's available in this industry. Well, there's only a few places you can work. Number one, it's definitely not back of house. First of all, I'm not a home brewer. B, there's like, it's a sad thing about this. Like, we love craft beer, but the people that actually like put their like blood, sweat, and tears into making it, I mean, the stats are just terrible. Like, we're talking about people that make $12, $13, $14, $15 an hour. Even if you're a full-time person, like you're doing 40, 50, 60K if you're lucky. And that's with like maybe no benefits, you know, no vacation time. Like, you know, we're talking about like, you know, like even if you're like up and up, like we're talking about those numbers. It's just one of those jobs that like, it's a thankless job. And so yeah, I won't be surviving off of brewing anytime soon. So what are the opportunities that are available? Sales. So sales is like definitely a thing. With commission, you could work for a large craft brewery, you could work for a distributor, blah, blah. There's jobs like that. I've done like some of that stuff, but like never actually like full-time that. So, I mean, I guess maybe someday if a good opportunity opens up, I'd like to take one of those. The other side would be front of house. So you just have to be able to find a place that has just so much volume that makes it worth it, obviously with the tips. So either server, bartender, blah, blah. I've tossed around the idea of maybe even working at like, you know, not even craft beer based, but like, obviously there's a lot of tourism down here. There's Disney, the hotels and stuff. Those people make a ton of money. You know, we're like, you know, ideally one goal would, you know, have any job, obviously, to be like a 6-figure gig, right? Like that's the dream for a lot of people. Especially like I'm the only breadwinner. Katie does all the like brunt in the house, but like, you know, she's not back to work yet, has been. So, you know, I've been the only person supporting us for like 3 years, or yeah, basically 3 years now. But that's not to say she's not working. It's just like monetarily, that's the only money that's coming in the door. And I mean, obviously we survive, you know. I guess we're like, I look up the stats for like somewhere around middle class for like a, you know, 4 or 5, yeah, 5 family household, but or 5-person household, whatever you want to call it. But you know, future, yeah, I would like to buy a house one day. Jesus Christ. Like about to be 34 and I don't own a house, which is like, man, we could talk about all that kind of stuff. Like that's the scary stuff. Like the inability of like income to rise to match prices of housing. It's like absolutely destroying my generation. And well, forget about like anybody younger than me. So anyway, that's a whole long conversation. But yes, hopefully eventually moving one day. You know, always the goal is to like find a gig that will pay you more. And maybe buy a house one day, like sooner than later, right? Burning money on rent sucks. So that's the present, and let's talk about the future. And then that's also like a whole crazy conversation. We talk about like, you know, income inequality, housing prices, blah, blah, blah. I'm gonna check on the girls. So until next time, guys, cheers. That's a little bit of an update for you guys.